Hi everyone, it's Kimber, the study abroad specialist. In today's video, we are talking about another scholarship. So I have been excited that a lot of people have been enjoying this series. And in today's video, we are talking specifically about the Chevening Scholarship. So it is Chevening, not Chevening. I know that when a lot of people first read it, particularly Americans who don't know how to speak English, which is most of us because we don't speak the proper Queen's English, and English is the only right type of English.
The thing about Americans that I've thought about the language is that they say they speak English, but they've had to change it to make them understand it more.
I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for that, but it's true. So with the particular scholarship, it is called Chevening, not Chevening. So it's Chevening, and with the Chevening Scholarship, it is a great scholarship because number one, number two, and number three, it is a full ride, fully funded scholarship. So that is what we always like to hear about. And I think after that, everyone's like, okay, I'm good. I'm ready to go sign up. But definitely watch this video first so that you can learn more about what is actually included and if you are actually eligible. But with the particular Chevening Scholarship, the wonderful part about it is that it's been around since 1983, and a lot of people know about it. It is a fully funded scholarship for students who would like to study abroad in the UK, which you know is my favorite place. Where else would I be talking about? But you can study abroad in the UK for a year. So it is for master students specifically. We're going to get into more of the eligibility in a minute. But the part of the reason why it was created in partnership with the UK government back in the 80s was because they weren't just looking for students who were talented around the world, but also people who demonstrated leadership opportunities and the ability to sort of be forward thinking and innovation and bringing more of that to the UK market, and not just bringing it for the time that they were there, but then also to going back to their home countries and adding more to their home countries. And particularly with the master's programs in the UK, even though they are 1 year, I can speak for this, that they're so intensive and you do so much that you are able to sort of come out, and whether you are able to stay or whether you are going back home, that you've gotten so many of the tools that you're going to need to be able to make a difference in your industry. And it is great that they've been able to continue this on for 30 plus years to give so many students an opportunity. So let's talk more about specifically what the eligibility is for the Chevening Scholarship, so you can find out whether or not you are eligible to get one. The other point that I did want to point out before I dive into eligibility is that there are two different types of Chevening opportunities. So there's the Chevening Scholarships that we're talking about today. And then I can do a separate video on Chevening Fellowships because those are totally different. As you know, scholarships and fellowships are different, even though they sort of have overlap sometimes. But in this particular instance, they're different. We are talking specifically about the Chevening scholarship. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little slide up here on the screen so that you can see and read along with me about the eligibility, because some of it is a bit interesting and may not be what you might be expecting. And so I want to walk through each point. So the first thing to know about the eligibility for Chevening scholarships is that you have to be a citizen of a Chevening country, Chevening eligible country or territory. And I'm going to put a link to the specific website that you can look forward to see if your country falls under that. But that is very important. You also too cannot hold dual citizenship in the UK. So that is a difference there, because again, I know that a lot of people do hold dual citizenships from different places, but unfortunately, if you are a dual citizen of the UK and another place you cannot have it, it really is about being able to import different talent and give people from these particular territories and Chevening eligible countries the ability to come to the UK. And so if you already have UK citizenship, you already have the advantage. And so that completely X's you out. So just keeping that in mind, that you cannot have dual citizenship as a UK citizen. Now, the other thing to also know is that you must have completed your undergrad degree. So as I talked about in the opener, you already need to be done with your undergrad because you are going to graduate school. This is a fully funded full ride opportunity for graduate students only. So you have to be out of undergrad and already finished with that. So you definitely want to keep that in mind as well. The next point to think about is you have to have at least 2,800 hours of work experience. Now, in my mind and what I've calculated, that's basically 2 years. I just don't like thinking of my life in hours. So it's a minimum of 2 years of work experience. That's kind of scary to me. Be like, I did 2,800 hours of work. It just sounds better if I did 2 years, minimum 2 years. So minimum 2 years of work experience. That's just a minimum. So you could have 5 years of work experience. It doesn't really matter to them, but a minimum of 2 years. Now, I know for a lot of people out there, you might be asking, well, why a minimum of 2 years? There's a couple of reasons behind that I have found, not just in research for this particular scholarship, but just thinking about what it means to be a graduate student. And speaking of it from a perspective of someone who just went completely through school and didn't really have a lot of work experience outside of internships until I kind of came out and got my first adult job, that it does make a difference when you are in graduate school compared to undergrad. There's a different need that is called upon in terms of your skills, in terms of your preparation, that can only be a little bit more helpful if you have had some work experience under your belt, particularly if you are dedicated to the field that you're going into. For some students, they come out of undergrad and they don't necessarily know what they want to do. But even for those of us that kind of knew that we were on a certain pathway, if you just had a little bit more work experience, it doesn't mean that it's a lot harder for you, but that it just gives you that foundation to sort of understand the ins and outs of the industry before you go back to school. So that's why they're doing that. So you definitely are going to want to focus on that. And maybe you're right now where you are just trying to figure out what scholarships you're available for, you're eligible for, but right now you are at 1 year work experience. Keep working towards it. This comes around every year, so you will have another opportunity to apply. But I definitely just wanted to point that out because that's a lot different than a lot of scholarships who may not have a particular baseline for work experience specifically, or they may just say maybe you need 6 months or even a year. So this is a minimum of 2 years. The other thing that is important to note as well that they are looking for is that you must return home after the scholarship. So I know that this one might be a little bit confusing, like, why do I need to return home? I can't just get a job in the UK. It doesn't mean that they don't ever want you to come back. There would be an opportunity for that likely, but they want you to do something called the multiplier effect. And so I don't know if a lot of students have heard about this. This is something that I've become more familiar with in the past couple of years, but the multiplier effect is an economic term that has been broadened out to be used in a lot of different industries, organizations, really focused around social good and even corporate good as people try to do better things within their organizations. And so basically what they're looking for is that you will use the opportunity to get your fully funded degree and really focus in on the studies that you want to do within your industry. And then you're going to return home once you're done with that and then go do good. So whatever you are doing with your industry, maybe you are focused on something that is about the environment. Maybe you're focused on something that is about specific social change, or maybe you're focused on something that is about business ordinances, or whatever that is that you're going to add in that multiplier effect once you get home and improve where you come from. So this is something that I think is, again, really good because with a lot of scholarships out there, there's not necessarily those requirements of doing it. You really basically just kind of fulfill the requirements of making sure, of course, that you show up on time to class and that you are engaged in everything you need to do. But then once you're kind of done with the scholarship, there's no expectations. And I really like the fact that they are asking for some follow through on this because it is already a huge achievement to get the scholarship, but then to also take it to that next level and be able to show that you can implement what you've learned within your course, that is going to be a big deal. So thinking about that multiplier effect and how you want to do it is only going to help you be able to hone in a bit more as you begin your study. So those are the basic eligibility requirements. I hope you're still excited about being able to apply. Now, I am going to link the Chevening website into the description because I want you to go and there's a specific page that you can use that you can type in your country and you'll be able to figure out when you're eligible, if you're eligible, and how that actually works because some of the applications open at different times. We're going to talk about sort of the application process next, but I just want you to be able to go ahead and do that so you can follow along and see if you're eligible and when you might be eligible to get this great scholarship. So in terms of thinking about when to apply, so there is a pretty robust but not uncommon application cycle for a competitive scholarship like this. So the good news is that you can apply anytime throughout the application window. So the application opens every single August. And so if you are watching this in August 2022, go ahead and head over to the website and get in there. If you're watching this in the future, definitely get prepared to apply. So you can apply anytime between August and November. So one of the things that I really like as well is that they don't begin reviewing applications until early November. So a lot of students I know that they feel really pressured to, as soon as the application portal opens, they're like, I'm in here, I need to apply right now. It is just a lost cause if I don't apply. That is not true, because again, you want to be able to take your time on this. Now, you can, of course, do your research and figure out what the particular elements are and what you might need to submit. But a lot of times that may change from year to year slightly. So you want to wait until the application portal opens, go in and fill out what you need to fill out, and then get started on the different elements of what you're doing. But I like the fact that they don't officially begin reviewing applications until November. So it gives people a chance, even if you are a latecomer and you're like, maybe you just found this video in October one year and you're like, I really want to do this. I just found out about it. There's still time until that November deadline that they have on the website. So definitely apply, even if it's the last minute. Sometimes things happen. Sometimes you've had a change of plans. It doesn't really matter. Whatever you're doing, go ahead and apply up until the deadline. They have it open for a reason, and they don't begin reviewing applications until all the applications are in. So it doesn't matter if you submitted on the first day it was open in August, or even that last day, as long as it's before the deadline in November, you still have a chance. And so, like I said, they begin reviewing applications in November. And then from there, what they do is that mid-November, December time, that is when they start with the reading committee. And so, as you can imagine, it is in the UK, so they don't have to worry about the Thanksgiving break, obviously, but it is sort of the slower time of the year. So this is when things are winding down. People are trying to get as much in as they can before we head into the December holidays. But with the reading committees, this is where everything kind of takes place, that initial part. And this is where they're sort of beginning to separate the people out that are like, okay, this application is not that great, versus these are the people that we really want to start looking more closely at. So that's going to be a really important time. But again, like after you submit it in November, you don't really need to think about it again until you hear from them. So they start their reading committee in mid-November, and then that goes through December and a little bit of early January, just keeping in mind that people typically disappear around the middle of December and are not back until early January. So you have to just give allowance for that. And then you get to late January, early February, where they do the shortlisting. So this is the beginning of the time where you can start to think about, am I going to hear from them? Am I not? And I love the fact that they do reach out to people as well, even if you didn't get it, because again, they don't leave people on the hook. That is another issue that I think a lot of us have with anything that we're applying for. I know that it happens a lot once you're in the real world, you're looking for jobs, but even with scholarships, things like that, you want to know whether you've gotten it or whether you're being considered, just so you can kind of block that part of your life out and move on to the next thing. And so it's a pretty quick turnaround if you think about it, factoring in the fact that you are submitting your application by early November, and then they're going to begin to do the reading committee in mid-November, and then there's the break that everyone has, and then they come back in late January and start letting the short list people know. That's a pretty good window of time. It's not like it's 5-6 months later. So just be encouraged by that even if you apply in November, that you may not hear about the shortlisting until they are ready to start doing that in late January and early February. And then from there, in February to late April, this is when they start to get the supplemental needs for you from your application. So good news, if you've been shortlisted, now they're going to need those other things that you would imagine. So your references, they are going to ask you for support documents. So that could include your transcripts. It could include an additional essay. They have different things that they require from different people as they're going through, depending on whatever your country requirements are for the Chevening, the Chevening, see, I even did it. I just did it for the Chevening territories. But you will at least be encouraged that you've been shortlisted and you're just going to need to submit those particular documents. Also, as well, February to April, this is when the interviews begin. Now, I'm going to link a video that I did specifically in my Learn How to Study Abroad in 30 Days series, where I was talking about study abroad interviews, but you can take a lot of the tips from that for your interviews for scholarships. It's pretty much the same in terms of the way that you would need to present yourself, the way that you're going to need to think about your questions. And I would just say that with this particular interview for a scholarship like this, of course, we know baseline that you're going to be nervous. It's a lot riding on it. Getting a full ride scholarship is kind of a big deal, especially if we are thinking about in a 2022, 2023, 2024 world with recession and inflation and all those things. If you can get free money somewhere to study in the best place in the world, the UK, put that on my tombstone. Thanks. That's a big deal. And so we know that you're going to be nervous. But the other thing too is that you really want to be able to not just dive deeper into what you've talked about in the supplemental documents, but to really showcase that you really want it and to prove that by not just your enthusiasm, but also to giving thoughtful answers that showcase that you are the person that truly applied. Because that's the one thing that really stops people is that a lot of times, and I've seen this myself even in my professional career, a lot of times the person who was on the application is not the person that shows up in the room. And you're like, what happened to that person on this resume, this CV, this application? Because in this room, you are not impressing anyone. So I would just say that as you're going through, you're going to have plenty of time to obviously, if you have been shortlisted, to begin preparing for your interviews, but you really want to take this time to set yourself apart, not thinking about what other people are doing, but being able to be as memorable in a good way as possible as you're doing your interview. So those take place between February and April as well every year. So if you're shortlisted, get ready for that and be excited for that opportunity. And then last but not least, in June, that's when people begin to find out if they've gotten the scholarship. So that is a great thing. Again, like you're thinking about a 6-month period. So even though it seems like a lot longer, there are some scholarships that take way longer to actually figure out if you are shortlisted, if you're even in. Sometimes you won't hear back from them. So I love that they give you that shorter window and that you sort of hear between the 2 to 3 month mark if you've been shortlisted. And then if you've been shortlisted, you again only have 2 or 3 more months to sort of hear back if you've actually gotten it. Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk about really quickly was just making sure that, and I say this for all the scholarships, that you are still moving forward simultaneously. So again, not betting fully on anything until you have it in your hand, and also not limiting yourself to thinking about other opportunities. So if there are other scholarships out there that you were interested in, definitely check out the playlist that I've done so far for other scholarships, but even ones that are connected to your school, to your college, to your university. If there are ones that you want to pursue, definitely do that. And then this can just be something that was a lucky surprise that you actually get, and it may change the scope of what you're actually doing. And you may end up taking this one, or I'm sure there are some students out there who have said, you know what, I know it's a full ride, but my complete plans have changed. But you don't want to ever sort of limit yourself to saying, I am going in there and I'm getting that scholarship. I mean, that is definitely what I would do because that's my personality. And I do want all my students to have that mentality, but I also want you to be smart about also applying for other things just in case it doesn't work out. So your next question is probably, how do I apply for this amazing scholarship? So I'm going to, as I said before, link information about how you specifically apply in the description box. But there are a few things to point out that are important. So number one is that you're going to need to apply to 3 different university courses. So at 3 different university, 3 different courses, and you have to have received unconditional offers from those particular courses by July of the awarded year. So let's say we're going into 2023 and you are applying for this particular cycle. And so you get shortlisted in April and then you get awarded in June. That means that you have to have 3 different unconditional offers at 3 different UK universities by July of 2023 if you're doing it for this cycle. And I'm going to make a separate video about unconditional versus conditional because I've had some questions about that from other scholarships that I've done, but I will just talk about that really quickly in another video. But I know that is something that really stresses students out, but for most students out there, you're going to get unconditional offers. That's what happens. There are less cases where people get conditional, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. And I'll talk about that in a different video. The other thing to know as well is that you want to be able to find a course that is going to be eligible. So again, I'm going to put a link to this tool that they have on their website. I absolutely love. I'm not sponsored by them. I've not even talked to anyone from Chevening, but I love how they have everything set out so clearly, because that's another problem that we often have with scholarships. And even if you're applying to school programs, is that you don't know like what works with what and how this works and how you do this. They make everything so clear for you. So there is a tool on their website that I'm going to link to where you can actually go through and see if the particular course that you want to apply for would be eligible for this. So definitely use that to your advantage, because you don't want to be applying to something where you're applying for this course just because you like the sound of it or whatever it's about, and it is not eligible for Chevening. All courses at all UK universities are not eligible. So you definitely want to be following along. So start there by figuring out, once you figure out that you're eligible for it yourself based on what country you come from, then you're going to want to use that tool to make sure that whatever course you are applying for is eligible for the scholarship as well. On to this point of eligible countries. So as I mentioned, if you go to their website, you can look and see what some of the eligible countries are. There are lots of them. I'll just name a few of them now. So Albania, Angola, Antigua, Barbuda, Laos, Morocco, Seychelles. There's so many different ones that are eligible. Those are the ones that are considered to be the Chevening territories or eligible countries. And again, same thing. As I mentioned before, you can't hold dual citizenship. The other thing about that too is I know that this is going to be breaking some hearts out there, but you will notice on the website that Americans are not eligible for that. I cannot specifically say why that is. I've done a lot of research on that, but I can only imagine. I mean, we had an entire war about this, so you can't pay for your schooling outright when we decided that we wanted to be separate. So we are not a Chevening scholarship territory, as you would imagine. And I can tell you full right out that if you want to get a master's degree in the UK, as I did, I got 2 of them, that you're going to have to pay for them yourself. So that's too bad. Back to the people that actually are eligible. You will just want to make sure, again, because there are some countries that even if you're eligible, maybe the application opens at a different time. So just go through, plug that in. It should be really easy for you to figure out when the deadline is for your particular country, and also kind of understanding how that works for you. But as I said before, I just love the fact that they make everything really clear and that there's not a lot of mystery around what kind of goes into this scholarship. Of course, we're not behind the scenes of them figuring out who they want to pick, but I like the fact that they lay out details so clearly, because there's so many other scholarships and schools and programs that don't do that. And so I really appreciate that, and think that Chevening has done a great job doing that. So what is included and what is not included with the Chevening scholarship? Now, with this one, I'm going to put another slide on the screen. I just feel like it's helpful to have some context here. Number one, as we've already talked about, and you know now, that is full ride. So tuition is included. That, again, is huge. It would be huge without a recession and without inflation, but it's just the icing on the cake at this point in this post-COVID world that we live in. So tuition is fully paid for in the UK. And that's a big deal, not only because it's at the graduate level. And again, even though a lot of people think, oh, like, you know, tuition is more affordable in places that are not called the United States. That is true. But at the graduate level, things are always more expensive no matter what country you're going to, particularly if you are an international student. So the fact that you could get free tuition at the graduate level in the UK is amazing. So congratulations on that. You will also get arrival and departure travel stipend. So that, again, is amazing depending on where you're coming from. Travel may be really expensive to get to the place. And so you will be able to go to the UK and also have your money covered to get back to your home country. You will also to have basically a sort of settlement assistance. So being able to sort of come to a country is one thing, but when you're getting settled in, that is also an important part. So they're going to be able to help you with some money as well, just to get you, set up in your housing, and there's things you have to worry about, particularly for that first month away, that can just kind of help you with some extra money. Also, too, you will have the cost of your entry for your visa covered. So that is amazing as well. Now, I want to be clear about this. They do not necessarily help you with the process of walking through your visa. That does not happen. I know that some programs will do that. They don't do that, but they cover the cost of your visa. But regardless, visas are very expensive, and the UK is one of the most expensive visas to get. And it's often very time consuming. So having a name like Chevening behind you and also having them cover your fee is going to help guide that along a lot faster. And again, they have more information on their website about specifically how you go through and apply for the visa once you have the scholarship in hand. They also too pay for different testing that you might need. So not necessarily this. I don't know, they might have that, but again, that's more new. But like for some countries, if you need TB testing or different things you may need before you leave home to come to the UK and then to go back, they do pay for that as well. Now, they don't necessarily cover things for dependents in that way. So they don't cover travel for dependents, they don't cover the testing for dependents, but they do cover that for the specific scholar. But adding in all of that extra money, it just makes it a lot easier. And they also as well cover your living expenses. So with that, that's also a huge one. I can tell you from personal experience that, I mean, of course, I can't really compare because living in London is going to be crazy anyway. And of course, if you're living in a different part of the UK, it may not be as expensive, but just the idea of finding the housing in London, I mean, it was pretty easy for me, but the idea of coming from a place like the US where housing is sort of built into your schooling to sort of figuring out how do I work with an outside company to find my housing and what do I do and how do I do all this. I love the fact that they cover your living expenses. So you can live wherever you would like to live. They're going to give you a stipend for that. And just keeping in mind that, of course, if you are in London or a city that is a bit bigger, like Liverpool or something, that there may be more coverage for that because your living expenses are going to be higher versus if you're in a smaller place where living expenses are not as high. So just keeping that in mind is amazing. But the fact that you get your tuition cover, your living expenses, this is like a dream come true. And so that's why it's so competitive, but why it's so exciting that they still offer this and that it's a great opportunity to be able to study in such a wonderful place like the UK where you're going to get so much value within just a year of studying and then being able to go home and do some multiplying effect really good within your community and within your industry that you want to do. It is an amazing opportunity. And I hope that as many students that see this video can apply for it and get out there and get that scholarship. It's a great time. So I hope this video was helpful for you. Had you ever heard of the Chevening Scholarship? If you have you already applied? The other thing that I forgot to mention too is that if you applied and you got rejected, you can apply again. That's another great thing about Chevening is that you can apply again. It's not like, oh, I applied once and then I'm completely done. Apply again. Maybe it just wasn't your year last time, but you can get it again. Have you already applied? Are you just finding this video and just learning about it? I want to hear more in the comments about what your goals are for your particular study abroad and what scholarships you're applying to. So leave a comment below. Go ahead and like this video. Share this video with someone that you know. Please subscribe to the channel. I release videos every single Friday and sometimes on Wednesdays and Thursdays as well. I'm so excited to bring you another scholarship video, and I cannot wait to see you in the next one very soon.